Hi everyone, this is Cecil again, and today's Yellowstone podcast is going to show you the various airports that you can fly into if you're considering visiting Yellowstone National Park. Now, you could just listen to the audio of this podcast, but it may be useful for you to take a look at this podcast on YouTube. The reason why is I've got a map up on YouTube and you can see where the various airports are relative to Yellowstone National Park. To find the YouTube video, go to our site yellowstonepodcasts.com. That's yellowstonepodcasts.com. Search for this particular podcast, click on the link, that'll take you to the YouTube video. I'm going to start with the Salt Lake City Airport. That is the closest major airport, and if you're looking on YouTube, you can see that I have zoomed into it. Most people who fly into the Yellowstone area fly into the Salt Lake Airport, not because it's the closest airport that you could fly into Yellowstone, but because it's the largest airport that is relatively close to Yellowstone. This is where you're going to get the best prices, and that is why most people will fly into Salt Lake. From Salt Lake Airport to Yellowstone is a very pleasant drive. It's a little less than 5 hours, and believe it or not, in those 5 hours, or 325 miles approximately, there's only one turn. You just make one turn to get from the Salt Lake Airport to Yellowstone National Park. You're on Interstate 15 as far as Idaho Falls, turn right at Idaho Falls on US Highway 20, and that will drop you straight in the small town of West Yellowstone. West Yellowstone is where our motel, West Yellowstone Lodge, is, and you can see that at westyellowstonelodge.com if you're looking for somewhere to stay, westyellowstonelodge.com. And this is why West Yellowstone is the busiest entrance to Yellowstone National Park, because it is the one that is not only closest to the Salt Lake International Airport, but it basically services all the cities on the west coast of the United States, with the exception of Seattle. If you drive from any of those cities, you're going to find that it'll be easiest to get to West Yellowstone, but that's the subject of another podcast. So if you want a relatively cheap flight, there's plenty of car rentals available, generally at pretty reasonable rates, and then you follow Interstate 15 up and US Highway 20 and you'll be in West Yellowstone. Talking of West Yellowstone, let's now consider the West Yellowstone Airport. The West Yellowstone Airport is literally 2.5–3 miles away from the town of West Yellowstone. If you need a taxi to get from the West Yellowstone Airport to the town of West Yellowstone or into Yellowstone National Park, we operate Yellowstone Taxi, which you can see at yellowstonetaxi.com. But you can also rent cars at the West Yellowstone Airport, although it is more expensive than renting them in Salt Lake. West Yellowstone only has 2 flights a day. On some days, 1 flight a day. On others, they all come up from Salt Lake City. So your options are fairly limited. You will be flying from wherever you're coming into Salt Lake and then take a second flight from Salt Lake into West Yellowstone. Something else to consider is that the West Yellowstone Airport, because of the amount of snow that we get up here, is only open for a relatively short time. Up until a couple of years ago, the West Yellowstone Airport was only open from June through the end of September. Well, the season has been extended a lot, and the flights now start somewhere around the 7th, 8th of May and end about the 3rd week of October. So that would be your second option to fly into Yellowstone National Park. And if you're looking at the map, you can see that the West Yellowstone Airport is right next to Yellowstone National Park. This yellow road, if you're watching this on YouTube, leads you from West Yellowstone into the park, and then you get to the Grand Loop Road. The third airport that I'd like you guys to take a look at is the Bozeman Airport. Bozeman is a really cool town in southwest Montana. If you're looking at the map, it's now in the center of the map. Bozeman is growing a lot, and the airport every year is getting more and more flights from different cities across the country. The Bozeman Airport is going to be more expensive than Salt Lake. But if it is important to you to get particularly to the north entrance of Yellowstone, and if you're looking at the map, you take Interstate 90 to the right or the east and then drop down as far as the town of Gardner, and when you're at Gardner, that's where the north entrance to Yellowstone is. So that's another option you have. It's not as close to Yellowstone as West Yellowstone Airport is. It's not as cheap as the Salt Lake City Airport, but it is another option. If we go to the east, and for those of you who are looking at the map, you can see me centering in on it, you get the so-called Yellowstone Regional Airport, which is in Cody, Wyoming. Cody is the closest city to Yellowstone's east entrance. It's a great little place to visit. It is a cowboy western sort of town. There's some beautiful roads around it. It is, however, a 52-mile drive from Cody to get to Yellowstone's Yellowstone's east entrance. Flight prices are not going to be cheap. They'll probably be somewhere in the vicinity of the Bozeman prices, but that is another option that you can consider. The final option that I'm going to tell you about is the Jackson Hole Airport. The Jackson Hole Airport, as the name suggests, is in Jackson, Wyoming. It's about, 10-12 miles to the north of Jackson, and it is actually inside Grand Teton National Park, although you're not within the fee area of Grand Teton National Park at that stage. In order to get to the Yellowstone south entrance, which would be the closest entrance, you would travel through Grand Teton National Park, across something called the Rockefeller Parkway. You would then be at the south entrance of Yellowstone, and that is 57 miles, or what would that be, about 89-90 kilometers from the Jackson Hole Airport to Yellowstone South Entrance. But one of the big advantages of staying at the Jackson Hole Airport, of flying into the Jackson Hole Airport, is that you're right at the town of Jackson, which is a really cool, quaint, cowboy, westerny type of town. They've really done a great job of preserving the character of the town. It's a great place to stay. There's some wonderful whitewater rafting there. It's more of a town than West Yellowstone is. It is bigger. There's a lot more hotels. There's a lot more restaurants, but it is really expensive. The hotels there cost a significant amount of money. So those are the 5 options that you may like to consider to fly into, to get to Yellowstone. Those are the 5 airports that you may consider utilizing. Salt Lake Airport, which will be the cheapest, but then you've got the almost 5-hour drive. West Yellowstone Airport, a lot more expensive, but right at the town of West Yellowstone, literally just a few minutes from Yellowstone National Park. The Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport up to the north, which is not too far from the north entrance to Yellowstone. It's going to be more expensive though. The airport at Cody, Wyoming, which is 52 miles or so off to the east of Yellowstone National Park, or the Jackson Hole Airport. That is the end of today's Yellowstone podcast. You can see all of our podcasts at yellowstonepodcasts.com. If you're looking for a tour, please consider our site, yellowstonetours.net. Looking for lodging in the Yellowstone area, please check out westyellowstonelodge.com. And then finally, we also offer day hikes in Yellowstone. You can see that at yellowstonedayhikes.com. That's yellowstonedayhikes.com. And the hikes are anywhere from 2 hours to a day. Hope to see you in Yellowstone sometime.